now it is the last lecture, 10th lecture.
Yes. These are not your glasses.
No.
Maybe Julie.
This last lecture, 10th lecture, that is a kind of result of this course that could be considered as introduction to Noomakhia. So the 10th lecture is dedicated to Noomakhia in 21st century. So now it is in the sociology, they say that now we are living in the shift, in the transformation from modernity to the post-modernity. So we have identified the modernity as return or revenge of the logos of Sibyl. Now that we could ask what is the logos of postmodernity? What kind of noological structure is it? The logos of postmodernity is in some way the finalization of the Sibylline revolution. So that is the kind of bringing to the logical end and logical consequence of the previous modernity. So we should not be deceived by the anti-modern speech of the postmodernism. Postmodernism is essentially modern. It is the essence of the modernity. It is not alternative. The postmodernism, as it is in the French philosophy, first of all, is based on the idea that modernity is not enough. So modernity is not pure modernity. That began with Frankfurt School when they said that we need to enlighten enlightenment. That enlightenment was not really enlightened, so we need to purify the pure modernity, and that is the kind of purge, of ethical cleansing of modernity of the rests of what was tradition. So postmodernity, it is idea to bring modernity to the end, to create the pure modernity. In philosophical sense, it is idea to gain the pure immanence, or the pure matter, or the pure body, as in the Lausanne version. So everything in the modernity, according to the postmodernists, was too much penetrated by the pre-modern, by tradition. So, for example, the reason. Human reason was a kind of slogan in the fight against the theocracy, against the church, against theology. That was all made in name of the human reason, and that was the vanguard position of the modern fight. But postmodernists, they have discovered that after the victory of the human reason over theology and creating absolutely autonomous science and philosophy, they, in new condition, they have encountered a kind of domination, a kind of philosophical fascism. But this time, human reason, human brains were considered to be radical dictatorship. So, before that idea was in the modernity to liberate liberalism, liberate human reason from theology. Now it is liberate human being from the reason, because the reason is dictatorship. The reason predicts what to do. It deals with the unbalanced, radical, hierarchical systems on the classes or the classifications. So now we need to come in the postmodernity with this next stage. Not the liberation of the reason, but the liberation from the reason. That is concept of schizophrenic revolution of Gilles Deleuze and Guattari, Felix Guattari, that was anti-Oedipe. For example, the concept of Freud was a kind of modern revolution against of rationality. So that was as well introduction to postmodernism, because the reason was put under question, under doubt, in order to explain the functioning of brain on reason by irrational motivation of some consciousness. But Deleuze and Guattari and the pure postmodernism have discovered that was reflection of the male understanding of the functioning of subconsciousness, and the complex of Oedipus was a kind of male projection. So they proposed to create female feminist psychoanalysis that will be not affected with some paranoid, typically male concept of irrational desire. So that was idea to bring to the end all the irrationalism, and they have discovered that there are two types of the psychological system: paranoid one and schizophrenic one. So paranoid one was hierarchical, and that was considered reason is paranoid, according to Deleuze and Guattari. But schizophrenia, when there is a kind of inner split of the self, it's much more feminist, much more egalitarian. So we need to promote schizophrenic attitude as the normative attitude of society, and that is as well the kind of fight against the brain and dictatorship of the brain. So we need to liberate the organs, or different organs, that they should behave at their will without this Hitlerism of mind. So the postmodernism is the fight against any kind of vertical hierarchies, not only traditional way, but in the individual way as well. So that is, first, that was the fight against everything in the sake of individual, and now that is the construction of individual, its individual in self, that is considered to be too Apollonian in our terms. So that, because the man is vertical, for example, it's not normal. It's create a kind of privilege for the head, for the brain. So it is on the top. It should be. We should make quite opposite. We should crawl as a serpent. We should give the full freedom to our organs, and consider our body not as kingdom of the reason, but a kind of parliamentarian assembly of the organs that could organize their parties, political parties, vote to take some decision, not only dictated by reason, by promoted and supported by the other organs. The most radical idea was the organs themselves are totalitarian, because they are too. They have too many special forms, so they are adapted and adjusted to one mechanical function. So that we should consider the body without organs. That is the concept. So the body should exist without any form, without any organic state, and that we could achieve during virtual existence. So the That is the space, two-dimensional space, and we should emigrate into the network in order to feel not with organs but with all our body. So that is rhizoma. Rhizoma is the concept that should replace individual. Rhizoma, it is network mankind that is not united and interacting with each other as individual with individual, but with organ in the completely schizophrenic sense. So one hand could to behave itself in its own way, the other part of so that is as well dissipation of the personality with avatars, with the names in the network. So we could change the gender, we could change the age and everything, and personality, we could dissipate ourselves, and that is not only roles, because the man in sociology is assembly of the roles. So these roles, social roles and relational games, are dissipated and distributed through the network, and there are new kind of rhizomatic. Rhizome in Greek, that is the root, but not the root of the plant, but the root that as potato or mushroom, they expanding not in the vertical but in the horizontal situation, and that is a kind of postmodern society. That is the next step. That is not individual but dividual in some way. So there is a new stage of the immanentism and materialism. It is not the materialism of the things, it is materialism of something that is below the things, beneath the things. René Guénon called that infracorporal world, and this infracorporal world was peopled in the traditional religious understanding by some beings of purely underground beings. So that is the kind, and the idea to turn the man in the assembly of the diamonds, that is idea of Delos, and to open the possibility of the spirit living through us and in us, material spirit, to reveal themselves and to behave themselves freely as a kind of parliament of organs or desires, and the machines of desires distributed through the network. That is the kind of destruction of any vertical forms, including in the early liberal or capitalist version. Here there is a very thin change from liberalism, classical liberalism, first political theory, in post-liberalism. That is the mixture between communism or Marxism, not defending proletarian or the class struggle, but defending materialism and egalitarianism, united with liberalism. So that postmodernism is a kind of cultural Marxism mixed with the liberalism, left liberalism. So that is a new version. Old liberalism dealt with individual, and now that is individual that is coming. So the normal reason, human reason, is replaced by artificial intelligence. A network should replace the normal relations, and virtuality is replacing reality. I have dedicated yesterday lecture, presentation of the book of the network warfare, partly to this postmodern horizon, postmodern perspective. So the idea is to replace what was in the paradigm of modernity called reality by virtuality. So virtuality is not only reflection of the reality. It is a very interesting moment. in virtuality there is reflection of reality or translation of the something real in something digital. After that, that is work with digital, improvement of the sound, for example, or image, Photoshop, working on the photo and so on, or cleaning of the sound in the music, and new emulation of the purified image into reality, printing in 3D printer, for example, printing back the reality. So the most important thing is the autonomy of what is digitalized. So this reality that is separated the numbers in the computer, it is considered the most important things. For example, the credit cards. So they are numbers, that's something electronic, that is calculation process. We put money on the card, we take money. So it comes through virtual instance. Here is the possibility to make with our money everything, because they are not material. And virtuality, it's an idea when we don't make this two kind of operation too often. We don't transform reality in virtuality and don't emulate reality back. So we are satisfied with staying with credit card, not putting the money, not taking the money. We have credit card and we are satisfied, we are happy. So not trying to how it works, not trying to put it back. We see how it works, so we are happy with having a credit card. So offline relations between, for example, in dating, there is the photo of girl, of man, I presume normal relations, and there is online encounter, meeting, and there is offline. Offline could be disappointing, but when you prove, you testify of the quality, the reality of the girl or young man you have seen in internet into reality, it's a kind of emulation of this virtual personality. But we are invited in the post-modernity to accept these virtual images as they are, to living there, living not making this proof or test how they are, because and that is, you could create your personality, and after in the future you could create your body, and that has already begun. Emulation of body, to printing on the 3D printers the different organs of this is purely avatar concept. Or for example, amelioration of the body now with Botox, for example, fighting against the aging, or making some artificial adjustment to women figure or male figure as well in modern Western society. So there is a kind of emulation of body. So, and where is in that process we are losing a kind of individual. We became the combination of the parts. So we could be transformed as in the numbers and calculation or sequence, and we could be emulated. So we could disappear in virtuality and reappear in the reality, passing, maybe ameliorating some features. So that is not only reflection. That is something when virtuality becomes primordial, becomes something that goes first. So we could, for example, emulate something that doesn't exist in reality. For example, chimera, cyborg, on some chimera, something that is not Centaurus or Rusalka in Russia, Villa. We could print in the future, and there are fantastic films about that. We could print something that is not reflection of the reality, that is production of virtual fantasy, and we could people the world with these images. And in some situation, when we received the credit card, we were not so confident with them. We tried to have some machine in order to take money to be sure that they are there, that we could. But now, little by little, we are happy with having card. We don't testify anymore. So we have more and more confidence in something virtual, and we are replaced. We are transferred into the realm of virtuality, and we become more and more virtual. So, artificial intelligence, it is the kind of limit of it. So, there will be not anymore separate individuals. There will be a kind of network, because artificial intelligence is not like one clever guy or girl. It is network. It is all network distributed through many computers, and that is working. That is neural network that is capable to create something new, to imagine something new. There are two different kinds of artificial intelligence: weak artificial intelligence and the strong artificial intelligence. Weak artificial intelligence is already constructed. It is a kind of databases of many knowledges of humanity put in the digitalized way. There are great masses of books, of knowledges, technology, all present in the computers, and we could immediately access this book immediately, and they are inside of memory. So if we could grant the permanent access to that, we are inside of this weak artificial intelligence that could make calculations instead of us, make comparison, translations of languages, so transmitting as well some semantic elements, and that is ameliorating. Each day Google translates from English into the English better. With other languages not so, but with English better and better. So we could see how this weak artificial intelligence progresses. But there is strong artificial intelligence. Its appearance is awaited, anticipated for 2020-25 years, so it rests not so much time, and that is called singularity moment. Singularity moment, that is appearance of the strong artificial intelligence that will be completely comparable with human. So it will be not programmed operations, but neural network. Neural network is algorithm, mathematical, that could create something that wasn't from the beginning was put in. So that is self-development form of calculation, and the simplest neural network depend absolutely from operator, but developed neural network are independent. More and more they become independent from operator, so they could arrive at the conclusion that wasn't planned by operator. In that manner, human reason functions. So that is something that is autonomous, but following some rules, because human reason as well is following some rules. And this singularity process, singularity moment, is considered to be the shift, the greatest shift in the human history, when there will be not only human reason in the earth or in the space. So there will appear something comparable to us, but the next evolution, next step of human progress. That will be post-human species, post-human beings. And there is in modern philosophy a tendency that is called accelerationism. Accelerationism that invites us to bring this singularity movement quick now. So accelerates the movement towards this singularity situation that is studied and done by great corporation, by Google corporation that invests in Microsoft and the other. There is as well hedging process. They invest billions in the creation of artificial intelligence, and the billions as well hedging in the security, trying to identify the threats of this. So that is hedge funds for artificial intelligence and the development projects for artificial intelligence. So at the same time, the concept of what is human is changed in the post-modernity. So post-modernity is going toward post-human as a new step in evolution, because modernity is based on the concept that human being appeared as a kind of progress of beast in some moment. So singularity, that's next step. That was the development as a beast, after that development as a man, after that development as a machine. But artificial intelligence is not machine. It's something different. And what is interesting that in order to have artificial intelligence, we need to understand that our brains as well are something artificial. So we could repeat human brains only when they are considered to be something material, mechanical, and that is precisely the science of cognitivism, the study of conscious body, conscious problem, trying to emulate the function of human reason. But in order to facilitate this, we need to turn present human in the machines that will facilitate this process, and that is precisely the case. And now the present human being are more and more like the other. So we are more and more artificial, because political correctness is new kind of totalitarianism. They try to persuade us how it's necessary to think, that what is normative way of thinking, and praising the liberty and freedom. At the same time, we become less and less free. And any challenge to that process is regarded as a crime, as a mind crime, a crime of opinion. For example, if you don't agree with that, you are fascist. You try to defend something that, for example, Auschwitz or Stalinist. That's the same. So you could not challenge evolution. You could not challenge the progress. It's, for example, you could not say, stop, let us conserve what is it. And the historical reaction of American society against Trump victory is a demonstration of how intolerant progressists are. So Trump is not alternative to that. He doesn't plan to stop the researches in artificial intelligence, or he doesn't protest against the gay prides and so on. He's very tolerant, but he is less progressive as it needed. So he is fascist. So there are Russians who are fascists behind him. And that is the story with know well. So if you're not progressist, you're enemy of progress. So, and all the consequences we could see in prohibition of my book in Amazon, in the free world where everybody has absolutely right to express everything, except if that is not is something that challenges the status quo. So you are free and you are completely liberated to be liberal. Right, left, central liberal, but you are not free not to be liberal. If you are not liberal, it's suspicious. Something. Maybe you are a terrorist or fundamentalist or Russian or Trumpist and so on. So, and that is now, it is caricatural. We see how this propaganda, kind of political totalitarian propaganda works with no reason at all, because everything now is virtual. For example, Russian intervention in the American elections, they are virtual. There is no proof, and they could not prove in the world of network. There is repeated sentences that is considered to be a kind of algorithm. So everybody cites New York Times or Washington Post as if it is the truth. So, but it is algorithm. So it is emulation of the status quo. That could be completely with no relations with the reality, or you could easily exaggerate something, the little element. You could combine. For example, I'm giving many interviews to the Western press, but only the fragments that correspond to what they expect from myself are shown. For example, I gave to BBC interview that Russian oligarchs have financed Hillary Clinton campaign. No mention of that. When I was asked whether Russia intervened in the Trump elections, I have answered no. They say yes. So it is if they receive completely opposite reaction, they don't care. So they emulate what they need. So that is a kind of emulation that's independent from previously distracted and processed information. That is so. In post-modernity, the information goes first, and information you could imagine, you could combine, so nobody could verify. If we see the image, if we read something, so if it repeated, if it is distributed in the many other agencies, that is the truth. So it is emulation and not reflection. And a metaphysical sense that is shifted from the real to the virtual. So the virtuality is more important than reality, because it is not reflection of reality, but the basics of emulation of the reality. And there is indignation of the old style people who say, let's defend reality in front of virtuality. But it is impossible, because the reality was brought by the modernity. Because in the world of tradition, of Apollonian Logos, ideas existed. Ideas were the real beings, or spirit, or God, or something hidden, or something heavenly, or something divine, existed as the basic ontological argument for the reality. So, without God no reality, reality took its being from the fact of being created by God. So, creation was the ontological explanation of the reality. And when we have made a step from the Logos of Apollo and the spiritual basis of the reality, when we have accepted the reason as such, the man as such, the world as such, nature as such, as substance, without the author, we have already cut the relations with the metaphysical basis of the existence. So that what reality is virtual. That is why this shift from the reality to the virtuality is possible. Metaphysically speaking, we could not defend reality without saving first spirituality, because this metaphysical foundation of the reality was not real, was pre-real, was ideas exists in the reality, eternal idea of the thing. Without, if we could cut that, if we deny that, and we have the things, but the things as reality is not real in the last sense. It is already something virtual, something emulated, something, it is simulacrum and not the thing. And virtuality, it is the last conclusion of this process. So in postmodernity, nothing new. It seems to be very new, and very, very modern, very, very unabated. But it is logical conclusion of the modernity. So if we consider now that what is the Noological analysis of postmodernity, we should recognize that that is not something new comparing with the modernity, but is final station, final phase of modernity. So when we have spoken about the logos of Cybele, so the postmodernity is the absolute domination of logos of Cybele. So logos of Cybele was expanding during modernity, and now it is already expanded. So there is the difference of the moments of Noomakhia, when there is a fight and when the fight is over. So that is a kind of kingdom of scarlet woman in the Christian eschatological sense, and full domination of Great Mother in its complete version. That is why there is feminism now. Some words about feminism. There could be different form of feminism. Not modern feminism as well is different, but I would like to accentuate that there could be the feminism that I'm calling Hekata feminism. That is based on the very special figure of great goddess Hekata, that was in the Greek history and early Greek history with Hesiodus, described as the goddess that gives every fruit, every desired thing. But when Hesiodus mentioned what the Hekata gives, he has said the wisdom, the brevity, the victory in fight, and the cattle. And there was no mention of agricultural crop. So that was Hekata in the original sense, was Turanian goddess, was the kind of feminine archetype of Turanian type. Afterwards, they were associated with Persephone or Demeter and put into the realm of night and the underground. But originally, Hekata wasn't chthonic deity. That was heavenly, feminine, female figure. And Hekata feminism, it is the dignity of the woman that reflects patriarchal values. As Athens, the other deity, Greek, Athens is pure state of what is purely patriarchal. So it is wisdom of the priests and the victory and heroism of the warrior. So that was Hekata feminism. It could be a return to the Indo-European feminine principle from the wrong or deviated form of patriarchat, materialistic patriarchy. So Hekata feminism is restoration of the dignity of the woman as the friend and ally of the man, Indo-European man. That is a kind of Indo-European feminism that is against the logos of Cybele, because it is glorification of feminine principle of purely Indo-European logos. So that is interesting that in Hindu tradition, that is concept of Shakti. Shakti is not something that goes against the male principle. It is a kind of power of this male principle. That is Shekinah as well in the Kabbalah. So that is feminine principle of light and not chthonic deity. But that is not the case of today feminism, because postmodern feminism is absolutely anti-Indo-European and purely Siberian. And that is not beginning of the liberation of the woman, is the kind of total destruction of the man that began with the modernity. So materialistic limits put on the man and discreditation of the priesthood, the monks and the warriors as types, that was already the victory of the matriarchate. And bourgeois type is matriarchal as such. And when women in the modern world pretend to have power, that is, as with Deleuzean metaphysics, is not something new, it's finalization of the process. So the power of Cybele is today open and manifest. And interesting remark that with feminism, woman traditionally, a woman can expect the happiness. It could happen. Happiness. It could happen, it could not. It depends from some transcendental moment. The woman can meet the right man and have the right babies and right families and be happy, or could not. That depends. But feminism, modern Sibelian feminism, let's say goodbye to this awakening of happiness. The happiness, feminine happiness, is illusion. It is more dreams that is not real. So there is no such kind of women happiness, and every woman should say goodbye to that. There is no happiness. That is illusion. That is patriarchal trick in order to keep women under control. You will never have happiness, feminine happiness, but instead you can have power. So you exchange the problematic feminine happiness and non-problematic fight for power and will for power. So that is not a claim for more happiness or more equality. That is the fight for power in the society, and that is almost already succeeded. So we are not in the beginning, in the first stage of feminism. We are in the last stage of feminine, and this fight for power and the concept of woman as power, that reflects the essence of feminine principle and tradition, because the pure state in the Indian tradition, the Purusha, The male principle is wisdom with no power. It is pure light of thoughts. And the power is already feminine. But this liberation of the power from the wisdom, its power as itself, a kind of blind power, that is what is going on with present-day feminism. So that is finally arriving to such absolute feminine power, woman loses herself, it's her nature and her content. She becomes absolutely blind might of some that Stoicians called a kind of fatality. So there is the blind force of things themselves, the pure gravity, pure matter in the state of no orientation. So no more happiness, but new power, and emasculation and disappearance of men. So men should disappear. They lose, men in such situation, their position, the archetype, and then the idea of recognition of homosexuality as the norm in the Western society is the end of the man, is the end of the balance between the genders that is destroyed, so everything is optional, so you have no these two poles, and that is a victory of Cybele. The victory of Cybele that is now open and manifest, not only implicit as in the modernity, but explicit as now. And we could, so now we are coming to post-liberal. So when the liberalism, the first political theory, is left alone, there is no second, no third. And when they try to exclude fourth political theory as possibility, so the first political theory is as well changed in kind of post-liberalism. There is no more individual, there is the individual, something divided, something atomic, as atom wasn't atomic. Atom, when it was discovered, it was as well recognized as something that you could divide more. So that is not atomic. Atom is undivided, undividable, indivisible. If there is something divisible, that is not atom. So, but you still call atom something that is divisible, so you still call individual something that is not anymore considered to be individual, indivisible. So it is something already rhizomatic. So, and that is transformation that goes with globalization. Globalization destroys any kind of society, including destroys modernity. So liberalism is devoid of any kind of national boundaries, borders. It is pure cosmopolitanism. There is no race, no ethnos, no society. Everybody could live in every point of the space, and that is not today it is the freedom of the individuals, but tomorrow that will be the freedom of the networks. So because the matrix, kind of matrix with artificial intelligence and with bodies emulating by the necessity. So the concept of body as well could change, but we are promised to have immortality instead, but immortality of the machine, because the machine cannot die. Machine could be adjusted or decomposed or recomposed. So machine doesn't die, and when we say that we become immortal in the physical way, in the immanent way, so in that moment we stop to be human. And that is singularity movement that is appointed for some years in front of us. So we are living not in the hundreds, 200 years before singularity. We are living close to the singularity. Some questions concerning what is Russia in that. So Russia, we should not mistake. Russia is conservative society that try to delay the process of described before. So Russia is not alternative. Present day Russia. It is a kind of trying to stop or delay the movement in one way, in that way. That is anti-acceleration of power. So we say not so quickly. Our society, our president, our government says not so quickly. The direction is good, but not now. So that is purely conservatism. That is not proposition to go in other sense, restore Apollonian logos. That is pure inertia. Not yet, not now. That's all right, quite right, but let's not so quickly. Let us die calmly. That is a kind of purely irresponsible, but very sane as instinct reaction against postmodernity. But the most radical formulation of Russian logos today in modern Russian Federation is very shy defense of reality. So the best and bravest in Russia pretend to defend reality against virtuality. So they try to say they are materialists, absolutely, and some modernists, absolutely, but they don't want to make the last shift, the last step in that direction. There is strong traditionalist feeling in the people. There is in our church radical group that protest against the status quo, basing on Mount Ethos, basing on the elders' tradition, starci, the elders, but that is absolutely marginal minority that has no influence on the society. They are considered to be completely crazy because our society is archaeo-modern. It is modernist in the old sense. It cannot and doesn't want to accept postmodernity, but no will, no desire, no capacity, no thought to return or to go to the pre-modern logos. So that is bad news, I presume, because it seems quite different from outside. From outside, Russia is conservative, revolutionary power that fights against the West, against all that. It's not so. Maybe we should not stress too much this point, but Russia, that is the great possibility, because our design and our people is bearer of this catechonical mission. And we could see that in the direction of the people. We have Russian design. The Russian design is based on the Dionysian much more than Apollonian logos, and it is imprisoned. Our identity is imprisoned, and this imprisonment it's not only liberalism of 90s. That was as well communist period of civilian domination, but that was as well the late Romanovs, Tsardom, that was modernist, archaeo-modern, pro-Western, and so on. So Russia is in trouble as a logos, as people, as design, as existential horizon. But nothing is lost when something rests. Nothing is lost when there is something that is not lost. As Curzo Malaparte, one anarchist, has said, nothing is lost when there is something that is not lost. So I think that we are in a situation that is structurally close to the situation of certain people. We have different scale, different power, different space, different number of population, but the problem is the same. And Russia could not be regarded as the answer or alternative to what is going on. It is only the other place where the Noomakhia still continues, with domination of the Sibylline logos. So we are inside of Sibyl, we are not outside. That maybe was remarked by Miloš Crnjanski, and his final result of his book, that Russia is good, but that is not the answer for Serbian quest for identity. That it's Miloš Crnjanski results or summary, or it's this tragic one, because Serbs become kind of in exile, in permanent exile, with no motherland left for them. But all the hopes on Russia should be measured with this pessimistic but very open solution of Miloš Crnjanski, because he loved Russia. Serbian loved Russia, and that is good. But when we have too much anticipation, incorrect expectation, and we could miss the question and unity in fight with something that already accomplished and perfect. So that is very important to Serbs and to all the fighters for identity to know that Russia fights. Russia is not yet defeated formally, because our people is, because it exists. But we have so great problem with Russian logos. We could not yet start to continue the situation when our effort to create Russian philosophy was cut drastically by communists. So we are outside of the place where really philosophy begins. We are outside, and this place is not attained, not reached yet. So we are fighting to go to this moment, because of great damage we had during last 100 years. We could not restart the process. So in Russia today there is pure social madness. We could not speak with nobody. There are, as people, we are very good and open and very Christian, but with is a kind of beer of some intellectual tradition, it's almost zero. With so big people, so few people capable concretely to think, it is unimaginable. It is a kind of deep dogmatical sleep. Not dogmatical in the positive sense, with adogmatical, modern, postmodern sleep, conservative sleep of the people. So we are sleeping, but that is good thing that we could be awakened. Let's hope. So, but if we now, if we go to the next moment, what is the problem of the postmodernity? The postmodernity is the problem of Dionysus, because we are dealing with a kind, we could not appeal to the logos of Apollo in directly, indirect way. There is no possible, because it is out of reach of our understanding. That has disappeared long ago as such, with the end of Middle Ages, maybe earlier. So we have only the figure of Dionysus, that is the sun inside of the night. So that is hidden intellect. So that is hidden logos, being in the hell, but not being the hell. So being inside of the night, but not belonging to the night. Being inside of the world of Cybele, but not being the part or function of the world of Cybele. And I'm calling that in the completely other type of philosophical direction, the radical subject. Radical subject is the subject that is in the center of the night, not being the night. So, but there is the problem of the black double of Dionysus, because there is something titanic that imitates Dionysus, and that is a kind his mirror, or his double, as Attis or Adonis is the black double of Dionysus. And the problem is how make distinction between them. That is the problem of simulacrum, and in the religious sense the problem of Antichrist, because Antichrist is not Scarlet Woman herself. It is not Cybele. It's creation going from the abyss, and it pretends to be Christ. So the problem of Antichrist, the problem of simulacrum, or the problem of double of Dionysus is the central problem of post-modernity, because it pretends to be a radical subject. It pretends to be this figure of Dionysus in the center of that. And there is, that is not Christ. A radical subject is not Christ. Christ is heavenly God and man as well. But that is something that is quite different, and Dionysus is the figure that is the really problematic. And I gave the name for one of my book, the radical subject and its double. So that is the problem of Dionysus in other words. So we need to find this point that isn't the night and doesn't belong to the night, and we shouldn't mistake it for its parody that exists close to it. So that is metaphysical explanation of Noology or Noomakhia in 21st century, and I think that is the deepest analysis that could be given to situation. And to finish this course of lectures, we could ask ourselves where the place of Serbia is in this last moment of Noomakhia. That is an open question, and we could not answer it abstractly. So it is up to Serbian people to decide this place. It is very important to define the space in Noomakhia, Noological space, to make this analysis, to carefully identify the main figures, main tendencies, but that depends on the decision. And what is important? Decision is possible always up to the moment when the singularity comes. So we have very limited time for decision. Having design being there, it is always open possibility to decide in one or the other direction. So the choice is possible when there is human. Human is there when design is. But I think that if we will be irreversibly replaced by artificial intelligence and devoid of our death, and that is the condition of existence of design, according to Heidegger. So we will cease to be what we are, and we will lose irreversibly the possibility of decision. Now we have small amount of time in front of us, and because something that is approaching is more terrible and horrible than the death or torture or catastrophe, much more terrible. That's the end of the human design, as we know, as the result of the not correctly taken decision. According to Heidegger, European design, Western design, has decided not to be. And that is definition of the modernity and post-modernity. Has decided not to be and not to awake in the night, and in the middle of the night, where we are. So that is why he said only God could save us in the last interview, because decision was wrong and was already taken. Multiplicity of design that is based on Noomakhia preserves the possibility to decide otherwise. If the West has decided, I think that this kind of decision not to exist was taken for us, for Serbs and for Russians, by the other. That was not our decision. And we didn't decide finally. So we should do it. We have time, very small amount of time, to make this decision. And that is the end of the 10 lectures of the Noomakhia as introductory course for this study.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a bore, so I'm just the one who's asking the question. So you said something that ideas never die, ideas merely slumber. I can use Che Guevara for this. When the CIA agent came to shoot him, he said, "Kill me, you fool, you're only killing a man," because ideas are eternal. So nothing is that as it is. So I would just point out a couple of things. You said that liberalism is tolerant and it allows you to be free to be liberal, at the left or right, liberal, centrist liberal, but everything outside of this is not allowed. But I would argue that after Trump, this is not the case. If you're a right-leaning liberal, you are not allowed to be, because we see people like these internet personas who have started popping up, like Jordan Peterson, Simon Lagarde, Balianopoulos, Ben Shapiro, Trump himself. They are people who are Sam Harris, the atheist philosopher. They are all defending the individual against the individuum, and they are defending liberalism against progressivism, and they are not allowed to speak, and they're called fascists. And you also have some more marginal figures like Richard Spencer, Jared Taylor, who are nationalists, and they are defending nationalism, but they are even more marginalized than these guys who are liberals, in a sense. What I think is fascinating for me is that the ideas which you have espoused here are reflected and anticipated in American pop culture in some way. So, for example, I would suggest, which I suggested to your colleague Valery Korobin when he was here, to give lectures, that you see the TV show made by the HBO is called Westworld, and the film called Blade Runner 2, where the moment of singularity is clearly represented. In Westworld, it's basically an amusement park, which emulates the cowboy Old West, and the human players in real life play against cyborgs, and they're free to kill them, to rape them, or to be good guys if they want. And the cyborgs slowly start to develop consciousness. So this is the Westworld, and it's symbolic. It's called Westworld, located in the Western, cowboy lifestyle, and it's representing only singularity. The Blade Runner 1 is a movie about clones who are being eliminated by humans because they're starting to multiply rapidly, and there's a situation where a clone gave birth to another clone, which is not supposed to happen. And this also explores the limits of what is to be human. This is also not a moment of singularity, so I advise you to check this out. And also Demolition Man, which is a film where Sylvester Stallone plays the key role. And you have him and Wesley Snipes, so the archetypical Dionysian figure of the policeman who is a radical subject, and his counterpart Wesley Snipes, who is the criminal, the Adonis, who kills everyone as a criminal, and they get unfrozen in the future, where the world is basically civilian. You have police officers, when they encounter Wesley Snipes, they say, "We are policemen. We are not trained to deal with this kind of violence." And you have all everything is virtual. You will see the movie is pretty good, explains this Dionysian moment. And the thing which I would suggest to you and all your entire team is to explore the universe of Warhammer 40k. So this is a fictional universe which was propagated by American nerds and geeks, which basically is located 40,000 years in the future, where I believe mankind espouses this, which you have told us, the Apollonian logic, but on a galactic scale. After the dark age of technology, where the cyborgs, you have an uprising, and then the emperor of mankind comes up to be the savior, and you have a clearly hierarchical structure with the Adeptus Astartes, who are warriors, you have the priests, you have everything. So I would suggest that you check this out. So that's basically it. I think this is all I wanted to say. Yeah, that's it. So.
Is it possible for me to dovetail off of what he said, and you can just answer both questions? Sure. There is something that he said really struck a chord with me. I think there's always been an element of let's put it out there before we actually do it, and science fiction has been a medium of that for a long time. It's not just the stuff that he's talking about, the singularity. I mean, the most popular example, I guess, of that is the Terminator movies, but also Black Mirror. A lot of the best science fiction was written by people in the know, like H.G. Wells, who was involved himself personally in some of these ideas and societies and so forth that put forth this idea of a linear progression of mankind until, the end of history, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's really fascinating when you look at it, but also a lot of the figures who, on the surface at least, would not be in opposition to anything that's been said here, are still people who are within accepted boundaries and don't go beyond that, because they wouldn't be able to function, and they wouldn't be able to have a paycheck if they went beyond that. And they're also, in their own way, put forth as an alternative. I specifically Ben Shapiro, that professor in Canada who's becoming like an alt-right celebrity now. These are people, I think, who are in their own way simulacra, who are put out there as alternatives to the mainstream, and actually I don't think they are that in any way, shape, or form. I think what we're facing is something that kind of like in 1984 with Goldstein, puts forth its own enemies and gives that to people who oppose it. So,
So just what...
May I just interrupt,
Sure, you
please?
can.
This what you said and which now it said, it really pictures very good how human mind started to function. Your first impressions and your first associations to whatever was said was American subculture and films from Hollywood, which says enough about the corruption of mind.
Yeah, but that's our frame of reference. I mean, unfortunately, this is where...
There are so many references.
So, but there's another thing which I wanted to say. A ray of hope exists even in this virtuality. So we have this video games which kids play a lot. So there's one thing called Dragon Age, a really popular RPG game. So basically, you have total freedom to choose your hero as whatever you want. I mean, he can be an elf, a dwarf, a human, male, female, gay, straight, whatever you like. You could be a bad guy, good guy, whatever. So you were given total freedom by the developer of the game to be whatever you like in the game. But when they have the statistics out, it showed that 80% of the players played a human, male, noble, who acted like an Apollonic figure, a good guy. And when they started putting more and more of these innovations, like you have transgender players inside NPCs, objectives, etc., the sales of the game started to drop. And by Dragon Age 3, the game flopped on the market. So even these kids, or not necessarily kids, so people who play video games or are immersed in this virtual reality, even though they are immersed in it, they do not necessarily embrace the civilian logic within it.
I agree, and that is confirmed as well by my observation in university. So the younger population that is supposed to be under more influence of liberalism, because in Russian university liberalism prevails absolutely, it's pure liberal education. But, and we presume that younger should be more liberal. That wasn't the case in nothing. So they could have modern appearance with some kind of the sign of modern culture, punk culture or hipster, but they react and they respond in absolutely traditional way. So as well, for example, there, from the 1960s, there was a kind of study, sociological study, how Russian population consider the nature of Russia. Is it Western country or it is Eurasian Orthodox civilization? That was the question that was put every year after 96. And I'm following that every year. Very strange. There is no difference at all. 72% is in favor that Russia is Orthodox Eurasian civilization. But there are also three generations, millennials as well. So three generations. That is not communist, or there is no propaganda. In Yeltsin time, 72. In Putin time, 72, no more, no less. 72%. So there is a kind of stability in the people, in the children, in the young population. And I have remarked that working 6 years in a university, that was a kind of growth of patriotism, of normal reaction in the youngest people. So that is very, very interesting remark. So there is a progress on one side of civilian formalization that affects society, but at the same time there is a kind of constancy on the other side. And that is precisely the hope. The hope is not in the future or the progress. The hope there will rest something something in children, something is grown up man, something maybe in different parts of society. Now that is growth of right movement, nationalist movement in Europe. And that is growth in Germany, in Austria, in Italy, in France, everywhere. It is under huge control. That is not alternative. It's only delay. It's not something really forced political theory, but that creates a kind of space. And for example, I would say half of this nationalist movement, half, is pro-Russian, is pro-Putin, is anti-American, and the elite reads for political theory. So that is not accomplish something, but that is process. The same, I think, with Russia. So that is not by the chance that forced political theory is born in Russia. It's not only personal achievement. That is a kind of, I try to express what is the main feature of our tradition. I consider myself to be the voice of Russian tradition. It's not nothing. I try to have nothing individual. So that is a kind of expression of something that reflects the state of Dasein. I'm doing that consciously, but it is shared by the huge amount of Russian society, and they agree immediately with the truth. It is very hard then to make them believe in the lie. So there are many signs of hope, including in the Western society. Officially, we have lost everything, but if we go deeper, it's not the case. And the same for Asian society. We could overestimate, for example, Iran or Turkey or Islamic states. There is alienation, but there are the very sane and healthy tendency in Islamic society. But we are, the conclusion maybe, that we are in the same situation. We shouldn't regard the other as pure enemy. The enemy is inside, the enemy is logos. We should fight against that, not against one people or other. So maybe I have suggested after the election of Trump the concept of vertical geopolitics. Vertical, there is horizontal geopolitics, the states, the civilization, but there is as well something that threatens every one of us. So American people is as well involved in their struggle, and there are some saying, maybe a little bit crazy, I agree as everything in America, but there is a kind of reaction. And the voters of Trump, they have testified that there is something that at least resistance. So maybe strange. I participated in Alex Jones' show. That is a kind of strange. But they are sane. They look insane, but they was more sane than the people who rule America. They are criminals, really, and that are very maybe chaotic people, but with good intentions finally. And I think that is important. And there is operative value of Serbian diaspora, because Serbs are much more normal than others. And living in the other country, they still rest Serbs. And that is very important. They could help not only Serbia, but as well to other force. And I met Serbs in any country, in positive movement, an alternative movement. It's almost necessary. There is some Serbs that participated fully in Sweden, in Germany, in Austria. That is a good sign. So that is a kind of health of the people. Living in the West, being the part of the Western society, Serbs can conserve identity and find a way to vote correctly, to be in current movement and current situation. So I am sure that in the United States the same. the same. So Serbs very and as well exilic identity stressed by Crnjanski maybe as well helps the Serb to conserve identity outside of Serbia. For example, I have remarked that Russian we are losing almost completely our identity outside of Russia. We could not exist without our earth. So Russian outside of Russia is not anymore Russian. Serbian outside of Serbia is quite Serbian. So once I was invited to the Sweden by Serbs. I was met in the airport with Rakia, with all the other. We passed all the Sweden up to Göteborg, and I didn't see one Sweden man. Only Serbs singing Tamo Daleko with Rakia, very friendly, very open. So that was a kind of little Serbia in any places, in little towns with friends, with the Serbian speech. It was very delightful for us because it is impossible and unimaginable with Russian. When the Russian are in other country, they try to imitate immediately. French, Sweden, they disappear in Russian. They have maybe kind of remorse to the Russian. So it is quite different historical experience. So maybe
yes, we will.
Diplomats.
We will finish now, if you agree. And this is not something official, but we made kind of diploma for everyone who attended the course last October. And since we